So this debate is hotting up, and I want to build on this further, but I first want to just get a non-partisan perspective from the former secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs, Vivek Kaju. We've heard from those who are aligned along political corners. From your perspective, Mr. Kaju, are there parallels between what we're seeing in the US and the kind of shrill politics? Is one side more to blame than the other? Sanjay Jha argues, that the BJP has also done and said things which are very dangerous calls for genocide, action against Muslims, which also would encourage violence, and therefore why just look at one side of the coin?
Rahul, I'm going to speak as a former diplomat. I don't want to get in the political slugfest which is taking place. First of all, as a former professional diplomat, I'm always very suspicious of transposing the realities of one country in another country. There are objective realities which prevail in each country, and one has to see those objective realities as they stand by themselves. Now, the second point that I will make is as an Indian citizen. As an Indian citizen, I'm truly distressed at the polarization that I see in our politics today. And I'll tell you the reason why I'm distressed. I think at no time in our recent history have we faced the kind of strategic challenges that we face today. They are immense in every sense of the term. And this is the time for the political class to come together, to face those challenges. For politics will take place, but every opportunity should not be utilized by one side or the other for playing politics. I think the government must reach out and the opposition must respond to their reaching out to find some common ground. The parliament session is about to take place, a new session on the budget session, which will be an exceedingly important session. Now, my last point. In the past, the political class, despite all the politics, had mechanisms by which they came together. Behind the scenes, their people they respected who might not belong to either of them, who might not be in active politics, but they tried to find common ground. I find that is absent altogether today.
Now, those are good points. Let Amit Malviya respond to what we are hearing. Point number one, Crooks is a Republican. Trump too called for violence. Conspiracy theories, Sanjay Jha said, are a right-wing obsession. When your leaders say, jute maro salon ko, when there are calls for genocide which are not condemned, all the lynching, he says this dog will still politics is a BJP obsession. So while you raise questions about what Congress leaders are doing, you're not holding the mirror to yourself and seeing the kind of divisive comments made by BJP leaders, which too could potentially encourage violence. It's a problem on both sides, not just on one side. Amit Malviya.
Sanjay Jha sounds like an apologist for Matthew Crooks, who made that assassination bid. And just since he does not ever come up with facts, let me tell him that he's part of George Soros-funded Antifa, a left-wing, anti-fascist, anti-racist movement in the United States. So before he comes and speaks, he should probably do his homework. Secondly, let's be very clear. How can there be these coincidences between what Rahul Gandhi spoke and what we are seeing in American politics? It takes me to the larger point that there is the puppeteer here who controlled strings of Rahul Gandhi in the Congress party. He's also controlling the string of the Democrats. How can two different political parties in two different parts of the world speak similar language unless there's a playbook that has been given to both these parties and said, go for these leaders? I name George Soros specifically. About a year ago, he went in media and he pledged $1 billion to bring down democratically elected governments, including Prime Minister Modi's. He called Prime Minister Modi a dictator. That is where Rahul Gandhi picked up the word. And then they have now come to promote certain YouTubers who did a video calling Prime Minister Modi a dictator. And crores of views were garnered on that video. If anybody goes and looks at the views of that YouTuber, you will find that there was a sharp uptick after this entire narrative was built up. So while global left is working together around the globe to bring down powerful, popular leaders who they cannot control, George Soros has visited India in the past. He's visited India at the time when the Congress was leading the UPA. He was in India at the time when government formations were happening. I question the Congress party on his indulgence. And why is the Congress leadership constantly going abroad like Rahul Gandhi did and seeking foreign intervention?
Okay.
We've had several accounts.
Let Sanjay Jha respond.
2024 general election, Rahul. Let me finish that. The 2024 general election saw great deal of interference from foreign powers, from the deep state in France, in Germany, in the United Kingdom, in Europe, in America. George Soros is obviously a more well-known, acerbic old man who has dangerous ideas, and his men and his teams were collaborating with the Congress party. And therefore, I again reiterate that the Congress party is now a convenient prop for these foreign powers that are interested in putting in.
So you're saying the Videsh ka Haath, you're saying that this is George Soros, who's the puppeteer, he's writing the playbook, and whether it's the Democrats in the US or the Congress in India, they're dancing, according to Amit Malviya, to George Soros's playbook. Let Sanjay Jha respond to that.
Yeah. Rahul, I think the BJP IT cell head made a terrible Freudian slip on your program. He quoted George Soros and he said Sanjay Jha is very anti-fascist. Well, let me tell you, I am anti-fascist. And I hope everybody on this channel is anti-fascist, because the BJP IT cell has actually confirmed that he's pro-fascism. And he needs to probably say right now on the channel, is he pro-fascism or is he anti-fascism? I'm anti-fascism, and I will be, and I think all of us should be, because fascism is what, in fact, unfortunately, is the language or the vocabulary of the BJP. Tell me, Rahul, when the Prime Minister says, Congress Mukt Bharat, what does it remind you of? Obliterate the political opponent, put Arvind Kejriwal in jail, put Hemant Soren in jail. Doesn't it remind you of that very popular man with that great moustache who devastated the world in the 1930s? That is the language of Nazism. Can't we just accept that reality? So for the BJP today to sound, kind of very rich on George Soros almost sounds preposterous. And let me make the more important point, Rahul. This is a party that has weaponized hate and has demonized the minorities in this country. And they have done it, I think, in a brazen fashion. I don't think now there is even any debate on it. And therefore, I want to make this point that I don't think many people say it, that Mr. Modi, unfortunately, and I would say tragically, is the most polarizing prime minister that India has seen. And when you have polarization, it can lead to political violence. And I think we need to worry, because my worry, Rahul, is this. My one last point. My worry is this. It need not even be an organized violence. As the case of Thomas Crooks shows, a lone wolf can do some serious damage to individuals and puts everybody, including journalists, at high risk.
Abhijit, Iyer, respond to what Sanjay Jha is saying. Demonizing minorities is a charge, weaponizing hate, creating circumstances of extreme polarization which can potentially lead to lone wolf violence, and that this isn't a problem of Congress saying things which can lead to attacks on the Prime Minister. Sanjay Jha says it's also the opposite, the kind of things said by people in the ruling party and the impact this can have on citizens or on opposition leaders.
Modi used the term Ghuspeti. Mr. Sanjay Jha has gone and connected it to Muslims. Now, who is the anti-Muslim person out here? If Mr. Sanjay Jha sees every Muslim as a Ghuspeti, that is not Modi's fault, number one. Number two, you see, there is a big... this is the problem with the Congress. Even in their truths, they hide the nuance, and it's a lie. Yes, Crooks was a Republican, but you look at it, and being a Republican out there is nothing. You go to the office and you sign up. You look at all his funding patterns. 3 times around he has funded Antifa and he is associated with George Soros. Who is George Soros? This is the same man as a Jew. As a Jewish kid in Hungary, he joined the SS and helped the SS confiscate properties of fellow Jews, hid pretending to be a Christian, and collaborated with the Nazis. I'm not saying this. He himself has said this in an interview. I've tweeted that link out. The second thing out here is, notice there is this consistent thing where they use one fact plucked out of context. Crooks. Why would he be funding? Funding money is important for a young man. Why would he be funding the extreme left, the violent extreme left like Antifa, when in fact he has got signing up for the member of the to be a member of the Republican Party? He is not mentally ill. He was planning this. As opposed to the attack on Nancy Pelosi, which Sanjay Jha brought up, who has actually had a long history of mental disease. I would urge you to look it up. He also says Donald Trump encouraged the attack on the on January 6th. This is Mr. Donald Trump's last tweet. I want to hold this up to you. I'm going to read it out to you. I'm asking for everyone at the US Capitol to remain peaceful. No violence. Remember, we are the party of law and order. Respect the law and our great men and women in blue. Thank you. So you see, this is how Goebbels works, you see. Proximity to George Soros. George Soros works with the SS, using Goebbels tactics. It's all on one side. Let's not forget it was the National Socialist Party. Nazi is short for National Socialist. There's only one socialist around here, and it sure as hell isn't the BJP.
Okay, Mahima saying, you've got your hand up, respond to the charge that's been leveled, that some of the kind of rhetoric that we're seeing is extremely dangerous and therefore potentially creates the opportunity for a lone wolf attack. It doesn't need to come in an orchestrated, planned fashion. It can be just one person who's listening to this juta maro rhetoric, who's listening to this, oh, this is good, this is deserved by the Prime Minister, this kind of shrill rhetoric, and then that can have consequences.
Rahul, first of all, I've been raising my hand for a while now. As condemnable as this attempt on Mr. Trump's life is, the unceremonious prosecution of Mr. Trump for his undemocratic acts is also being witnessed by the world. So when the BJP spokesperson and leader is trying to draw parallels between Mr. Trump and Mr. Modi, I am sure he is also indicating towards the larger public sentiment against Mr. Modi also in the country, which has reflected in the recent election results also. And need I also remind how Mr. Modi in the last Karnataka elections last year actually incited the voters, invoking them, provoking them rather, saying ऐसे बटन दबाओ कि तुम बटन यहाँ दबाओ और फांसी वहाँ लग जाए. He was inciting vengeance. He was invoking the voters to vote with vengeance. Now that is very, very unbecoming for a sitting prime minister. And I think that is exactly what has led to the number of increased lynchings over the past 10 years. And I hope that we'll see a decline in all sorts of hate crimes, all sorts of dharm sansads and everything that the BJP and the RSS perpetrate and propagate in this country. In the coming years, at least, whatever time the BJP has with the kind of fractured
Okay, so I think we've had a very fascinating conversation. I think our guests have been remarkably good in making the points that they've had. They've brought out their arguments on both sides of the political divide. And I want to leave it to our viewers to decide what they make of this. But remember, there could be potential consequences. I think that's where centrism and the space for lesser rhetoric becomes, lesser shrill rhetoric and polarization becomes important. Because if you make these kind of incendiary comments about your opponents, it can set somebody off, spark a light somewhere where there's an action that's taken of the kind that we saw against former President Trump, this assassination attempt, very, very dangerous. And if anybody says that there is no connect with Indian politics or shrill rhetoric has no impact on the human psyche, that's not correct. It's not just a comment you hear on TV or a post on social media. People react, they take that in, and there could be consequences.